Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. If you would, we're going to have, there you go.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Hugo Santos, and I'm here. I'm coming from Just Communities, and we have a commitment with linguistic justice in the Central Coast. So just a couple of things. We're going to interpret between English and Spanish. And those of you who want to use this service, we have some equipment outside for you to use, and that's pretty much it. Just a couple of recommendations. Please, when you speak at a slow pace and as clear as possible and as loud as possible, and that will make our job easier for everyone. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. If you would all please stand and join me in the pledge. Right hand over your heart. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. May we get a roll call, please, when you have a moment?
Councilmember Villaseñor.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Edmonds.
I am here.
Mayor McCall.
Here.
Councilmember Alex.
Here.
Councilmember Austin. Here. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. May I get an approval of the agenda?
I would like to pull item 8C and simply hold it so that we can have more conversations about that. 8C is the one that has to do with the business district. Do I have support for that?
I'm happy to pull it. That's fine. If we want to have more time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
And I would like to, if that's being done, to move up agenda item 8E to be right after 8A, to insert it after 8A. And my reasoning for that is that gives 8E is more of an overview, big picture American Rescue Plan funds, and I thought we could start there before talking about items that may include American Rescue Plan funds.
Read my mind.
Okay, great.
Yes, same here.
Okay, very good. So with that, do I have an approval of the agenda?
I move the agenda as corrected or as changed.
I second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to move on to presentations, and I would like to welcome up Kay Wilson Bolton.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Mr. Rowlands, thank you for the invitation to be here. My goal this evening is to make you aware of the services being provided by the Spirit of Santa Paula to homeless people in the Santa Clara River Valley. I have 3 guests with me tonight, and 2 would like to have 60 seconds to say hello to you and give you a little bit of their story when I'm finished. Jenny Arana is to my left, and she's one of my Spirit Board members. The quality of life in any community is often defined by how it cares for its most vulnerable people. Whether it's hospice, One Step a la Vez, Circle of Care, ARC or SPARK, Meals on Wheels, Boys and Girls Club, literacy programs at the library, senior center, food pantries and shelter, they all enhance the quality of life for everyone in a community in some way. A shelter for homeless people benefits the entire community. People are not on the street, they receive medical care and are put on a path to sobriety and permanent supportive housing. They're less apt to steal and panhandle. Spirit of Santa Paula began our work and incorporated in 2002 to do something good for our community. We found our stride on Christmas Eve 2008 when we discovered a homeless man died in one of our churches. His name was Richard Rios Soto. On that cold and drizzly evening, shelter was just a flicker of a dream for us. But it's an example of how God took a bad situation and made something good from it. Other programs were launched: a weekly hot meal, drop-in center, food pantries, 6 temporary winter shelters, weekly showers, and laundry services, one stop with Ventura County Continuum of Care, food rescue, transportation to medical procedures, riverbed cleanup, spiritual care, and mentoring. Our early winter-only shelters were in local churches. The first of 4 of them were actually found us sleeping on the floor together, and guests spent their days on the streets no matter the weather. To make a very long story very short, an investor purchased the old Frontier Club in Santa Paula as an investment, and then ended up gifting it to Spirit of Santa Paula to be used as a shelter. The very good news is we are debt-free, and we have a beautiful commercial kitchen and handicapped shower and restroom. Ventura County Public Health has shepherded us through 2 rounds of COVID and 1 round of norovirus. Behavioral Health consults regularly on behalf of people who need extra care, and the continuum of care in the county CEO's office keeps us buoyed and operational. Child and Protective Service workers visit us regularly. We have become their trusted partner. Zoom calls with social workers are common, as are communications with probation officers. The City of Santa Paula, under the leadership of Dan Singer and James Mason, have become our champions. They helped us make the shelter a reality, and the City Council has been a consistent supporter of ours, even though there have been controversies. More than 200 people have slept safely at Harvard. We call it Harvard because it's on Harvard Boulevard. And when they leave us, they become Harvard graduates. So 200 people have slept there since December 6, 2019. They've come from Santa Paula, Fillmore, and Piru. There have been more than 30 children. At least 4 have been newborns. And we sheltered an 82-year-old surgeon from another country who had been in Greenfield for a year. He came to America 15 years ago thinking that things would be better, and they weren't. He died with us in February of 2021. We've hosted professional musicians, educators, and numerous business owners. Twice there have been 3 generations of one family staying with us: grandparents, sons and daughters, grandchildren. They were not always homeless, and each one has their story. I receive calls almost daily from area hospitals asking us to take people in, and we've received calls regularly from cities as far away as Santa Ana, Bakersfield, and Sacramento, people just Googling shelter, Ventura County, and we pop up. We do not take them, and it's very hard to say no, but if we did, there would be no room for our communities. As rents rise, housing supplies diminish, and the pervasive effects of COVID, evictions, and foreclosures loom, we face even a greater demand for shelter beds. Our case managers are making inroads into better health care connections and planning with social workers and medical providers. Our great partners are the Continuum of Care, Homeless Services, and Pathways to Home. They help us open doors that we cannot open on our own. Food Share keeps the food supply chain flowing, as does the state's Cal Recycle program that provided our beautiful refrigerated trucks. It took us almost 14 years to get to today, and we just received a grant for $1.5 million from the state to expand our facility. None of that money can be used for operations. With that funding, we'll create capacity for phase 3 of our Spirit programs called Launch. And we will graduate people from Harvard into trade schools, college classes, and skills so that they are better able to take care of themselves and their families. So my objective tonight is to ask the City of Fillmore to provide a fair share in your budget for the Spirit Shelter. God bless you. In 2021, we had 93 unduplicated guests representing over 13,000 nights of shelter. In the years 20 and 21, 19 of our total guests were from Fillmore, representing 12.6%, or rounding it up, 13% of our total guest population. Insurance costs for the shelter alone are $17,000 a year. The cost per shelter per night per individual is $20.48. That assumes full house at 49 people per night, and that compares to the Arch in Ventura that was built at a cost of $3.2 million, and they only house 52 people at a time. The irony is that the last homeless count revealed there were 95 homeless people in Santa Paula, but we served 95 in the shelter and another 79 at our resource center, which is just people who either not eligible to stay at the shelter or don't want to, and they come from 9 to 1 during the day for street outreach. So that's a total of 174 homeless people when we only counted 95. When it comes to Fillmore, in the last 2 years, you've counted 10 people, and we've had 19 in the last 2 years stay at Harvard. So we can't do without the one point in time count, but it's never accurate because you can't find all the homeless people at one time so you can count them. So it seems that we are housing all of Fillmore's homeless people that at least have been counted. By note, the 2022 homeless count is scheduled for February the 23rd, and we do need volunteers for that. I'd like to introduce you to Vanity Alonso and Daisy Rodriguez. They both are from Fillmore, and they both have been homeless. And they're going to take just 60 seconds to tell you a little bit of what happened to them and how they found us and how life is now. Vanity, why don't you go first?
Hello, my name is Vanity. I'm 19 years old, and I have lived in Fillmore almost all of my life until I became homeless. I'm very thankful to the shelter for providing me and my siblings a home and an opportunity. I now work there, and I have 2 jobs. I am currently attending college, and I spend most of my time just taking care of my siblings. I am thankful to be here, and I'm thankful that you all are listening to what Ms. Kay has done, and I'm very thankful for her and the opportunity she has given me. Thank you.
My name is Daisy Rodriguez. I'm 66 years old. I retired from Ventura County Area Agency on Aging. I was comfortable. I had my own apartment. Rental increases made it impossible for me to stay there. I ended up sleeping on your trains and in your riverbed. I had a tent. I lived there for approximately a year. My friend told me about Spirit of Santa Paula. I made a phone call, and God blessed me to enter there. I had lost hope. I did not know what to do or where to go. I now have a caseworker provided to me that is helping me get documentation so that I can fly. My goal is to move to Oklahoma with my family and a key economy I can afford. I lost hope. Drinking was the only way that I could be homeless. It was destroying my life and my health. I have surgeries coming up on my eyes, and I have to have a clean environment, sterile environment, and Harvard is providing that for me. As I said, I have a caseworker. I'm given 3 wonderful meals a day. There's always fresh fruit available for me and vegetables, always cheesecake and donuts too. I have a shower every day, which I didn't have before. I really appreciate the staff. I am comforted by them when I have problems. They help me find solutions. They're not always the ones I want, but I have options now that I didn't have before. I'm just so blessed to be there, and I'm proud to say that I'm 30 days sober today, and that would not have been possible if I hadn't had the environment, the stable environment that I'm in right now. Friends of mine come to Harvard. They're homeless. They take the bus to come over there and have a hot meal in the morning and showers on Friday. I'm blessed to be at Harvard, and I'm very, very, very blessed.
So that is why. Do you have any questions for me?
I just want to say congratulations and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's amazing, and congratulations to the both of you. Well
Yeah.
done, well done.
Yeah.
I wanted to applaud, but I guess we're not supposed to do that.
Oh, yeah? Well, go ahead.
Make
Okay.
we can make an exception.
Thanks for listening. I went a little over time, I know, but hope I didn't waste your time. I am going to submit a formal request for consideration to assist us with these expenses because your people are our people. Okay, thank you so much.
Kay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really great. Appreciate you ladies getting up and sharing your story. It's really, really moving. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 7, and that's, public comments, item 6, missed that part. Mary, I just wanted to let you know that the item that you, Mary Bennett, the item that you submitted your speaker card for has been removed from tonight's agenda. So we're going to bring that back at another agenda, but I just wanted to let you know, okay? Okay, so I have one speaker for regular public comments, and it's Joey. And I'm sorry, I can't read your last name. If you could let us know, that'd be great.
Thank you, Mayor McCall, members of the City Council. My name is Joey Oslakomsky. I'll try to talk slowly and clearly. I'm really grateful to have the interpreters here tonight. So today I went to the Ventura County Transportation Commission's Unmet Needs meeting, where you're supposed to tell them, what are unmet needs for certain areas in the county. Fillmore is sort of called out as one of those places. And this is a pretty opaque public process, one of the more opaque ones in the county. And I think year after year, VCTC says they hear more requests coming out of Fillmore for a bus to LA County, a bus to Moore Park, but then at the end of it all, they kind of throw their hands up. They say we would have to buy a smaller bus for Grimes Canyon, yada, yada, yada. It never happens. But, I'm hoping that maybe the council, maybe Councilmember Edmonds, if you're on the commission, you can help apply a little more pressure to VCTC through this process to kind of at least be more clear about what's actually possible and clear that, that's something that's coming out of the community and is called for. And, I know that money ends up going to repair roads and whatnot, but thinking about some of the other items on the agenda tonight, like if Fillmore is going to become more of a tourist destination. If you go to Ojai on a Saturday, there's just cars from one end to the other of Main Street, and it's just it sucks. There's too many cars. So we want to bring more people here, but let's start exploring other ways that we can get people here, whether it be by bus or with a bike path or things like that. So that process is ongoing. Maybe some members of the council aren't as familiar with it that are fairly new, but it's something to look into. If you can figure it out, you're smarter than I am. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I don't have any other speaker cards for open public comments, so I will call the others when we get to the item that you've noted on here. So we're going to move on to item number 7, the consent calendar.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8. That's new business, and we're going to go with item 8A, and I will turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good night, council members. I am here today to request approval of a 4-year contract for tree maintenance services. Utilizing some of the funds that we already have in the current budget year, and if approved, we'll go ahead and make sure that it's budgeted for future years. So just to give you a little bit of background, state and local agencies may, without any prior competitive bidding, contract with suppliers who have been awarded by other local agencies. And this process is known as piggybacking. And so, although our city doesn't quite have an ordinance that stipulates that, there is a portion on the Fillmore Municipal Code. It's section 2.60.050, which does allow the city council to waive the requirements for competitive bidding. As a result, pursuant to this section, if city council agrees today, we can elect to award that contract based on that section of the code. The city has been using West Coast Arborist for about 22 years now, and staff's really happy with the services that have been received. I was talking before the meeting with the representatives who are here, and they were sharing with me that about 20% of their workforce actually resides in Fillmore as well. So we're here today to request you to approve the contract. We are basing the rates. We negotiated the rates based on Camarillo. There were two proposals received, one in Agoura Hills and the other one in Camarillo. However, we're choosing to go with the Camarillo one because it's local Ventura County, and it was a little bit more with what the needs of the city were at that point, and we did reduce the fees a little bit based on that and negotiated. Over the past few years, something I wanted to point out is that the city's tree maintenance budget has been reduced, and as a result of that, we're kind of catching up now with the maintenance services. Last year, just to give you a little bit of more background information, we had about $44,000 budgeted, but there was an increase of about $50,000, bringing it up to close to $95,000 when we looked at the whole budget. So we're also requesting West Coast Arborists to update our tree inventory, which comes very handy for risk management. If there's some sort of a claim that comes through, we go into that database, pull the information from it, and then we can kind of forward it to the insurance company and get the data as needed. So we have discussed that with the contractor and asked them to provide training because there's been a change in staff, so that we can continue also recording any sort of services that would be provided by the city staff and just keep up with having the data up to date. And so for the 4-year breakdown, it would be a total cost of $415,000. The first year, which is the current fiscal year, is a little bit higher because it includes the update of the inventory cost. And then from years 2 to 4, it would be $100,000 every year. And we have identified that there are some pockets where we can cover the cost. So it would be $54,044 from the tree trimming, which was adopted in the current budget. We also have street and drains funds of $44,044 and general funds of $8,000. We do recognize that we do have money available on the landscape and lighting district. However, we can't really determine how much money will be utilized from that specific district up until we have an updated inventory and we can schedule work with the contractor. Then we can go ahead and pull from that money that's available. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. Mr. Smallwood is also here, and the contractors are here. If you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer them.
I have a bunch, but I don't know if anybody else
Why do you go ahead, Lynn?
I have 11 questions.
Okay.
Sorry. I can ask them all at once, and then you decide which to answer, or I can go one by one, so you can decide.
Probably we should go one by one.
Okay. I know that the contract says to remove trees, and then at the very end of the contract, there's a whole section on if we choose to have them plant trees. Does that include the cost, does the $100,000 include the cost of planting, or is that over and above?
No, that's over and above. Just so that you know, we have only $500 budgeted for tree replacement.
Well, and that brings up an issue that I have a concern about, and that is we require this is just for your information, I don't expect an answer. We require citizens who take the tree out to replace it, and yet we don't. And I think it's important. I know that there's a disease going around with trees right now, and so, of course, trees have to go down, but I think we need to look in our budget for for money to replace the trees. So that's number one question. Okay, forget that one. On one section, you had written that the contract has, and I think what you did was take the whole contract at verbatim from Camarillo, because it says that they need to be careful with Metrolink line. We don't have a Metrolink line, we just have the Santa Paula baseline. So we should correct that on the form.
Are you referring to the contract template?
Yeah, the contract itself. That's just an informational
Okay.
item. Don't expect an answer. Oh, on page 42, A3 work schedule, the fourth paragraph, I think it is, or maybe it's the second. It says that if we call them, they will get extra pay. Does that mean we pay extra also? It's over and above the contract if we call outside of the hours?
Correct. And whenever there is on-call emergencies, the Public Works crew responds to those first.
Okay.
And then we do try to keep it regular hours with the contractor.
Okay. And that goes to my question, would emergency work be done by staff?
Correct. That's how it's being handled at the present time.
And who supervises the contract?
So right now with the new contract, we are going to be partnering up, so it'll be a joint effort between Mr. Smallwood and myself.
Okay. Because our parks are in desperate need of help. Not the new one. It's pretty nice. I mean, although they sometimes get too much water, but that's not an issue. And how are trees that are removed approved? How is that done? I know Santa Paula, they left, but Santa Paula is so serious about their trees because of the environment and the beauty that the city council has to approve every tree removal. So how are those approvals done?
I think it just kind of depends on the situation, right? Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more. It's just if it's an emergency situation, we go ahead and execute. There's other times where if it's affecting like a curb or sidewalk, then it's a more joint discussion with management, and we also get engineering involved and we get the arborist involved, and so it's more of a involved process. There's not really like one single way of determining how we're going to make that decision. It just depends.
Okay, but the ultimate decision is by
the city manager's
the city
office.
Manager. Okay. It says that there'll be an inventory, and it would be great if we could have. I would assume they're going to do a monthly report of what they've done in the parks for the month. It'd be great if we could get a copy of that.
Okay.
And
the inventory already exists, just so that you know.
Oh.
It's just it hasn't been updated since 2015, if my data is correct.
Perhaps we better wait until it's
So we do
updated.
have to update it.
Yes, we'll wait till it's updated, or I will anyway.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And
Perfect.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to make a comment on, speaking of the tree removal and the new tree planting. I really like the detail that I saw in the staff report about the collaborative effort of the supervisor and bringing in the arborists, and basically more than one set of eyes or even one decision maker seeing that. So I appreciate the detail on that, because I know, as Lynn said, trees, both planting and removal is a sensitive and very passionate part of our local community. So I'm glad that the efforts are going into it.
Yeah.
So I want to make a couple of comments. One is that I love that 20% of the staff live in Fillmore. That's really a passion of mine, that Fillmore residents will be able to work in Fillmore and not have to commute. The other thing that I wanted to note, and this is for, I think, the both of you, is that there are there's the disease trees in the bridges is pretty prevalent. Comstock owns, so it's my understanding that it's Comstock's until that piece of the development is finished, and then it's transferred over the city. And what I want to request of you is making sure that you review each of the trees, because on my street and then the streets around me, I walk my dogs, 3 times a day, and they have these white mold on them. And so I know currently that is in control of Comstock, where I particularly live, but say over in Rio Vista, it's already been handed over. So I just want to caution you or give you a heads up not to look at those trees before, because that's going to create a problem with the city when it should be Comstock's. Comstock should take care of it first. And if those diseased trees are handed over to the city, then it's our expense, right? So just to kind of do a survey of the trees and just make sure that everything's okay before it's handed over, because those houses are building up pretty quickly. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a couple questions of you real quick. Lynn, you just have one question?
I just have one.
Go ahead.
It's in the contract, it requires that the supervisor speak English, and I think that's inappropriate to say. I want the best candidate, and if the person speaks Spanish primarily, then there'll be other people around that can interpret. So I would hate to have that restrict the best candidate. Not that I don't mind if they speak English, it'd be great if they do, but if they don't, I want the best arborist to be the supervisor. So I don't know if you can take that out of the contract.
We have the best. They're the.
Well, then you don't have to have it in.
Yeah, I mean, should I get over here?
Yeah.
Should have kept my mouth shut. Good evening, council. I've been working with West Coast Arborists even before I was a supervisor. I've been here about 25 years. And if all the contractors would work as well with me and do as good a job as West Coast Arborists did, my life would be a whole lot easier. They do live in town. Lorenzo, the supervisor, lives in town. I don't think he's a certified arborist, but he is a very good. We always consult and look at all the diseased trees and all those things that we're looking at. So we have a good communication with them. And
So can we take that out of the, say that they have to speak English, can we take it out of the contract?
I mean, mi español es muy limitado,
Well,
but
that's okay. That's pretty good.
and that's all I know. No, but look, I mean, we have translators in town.
Yeah.
I can understand the statement. I can understand what you're saying, and if that's an issue, I don't think there'd be a problem to remove it. I don't know how that would go, but
It's just a thought, so I
Yes,
wanted
ma'am.
to bring that up.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
So I have a couple questions for you. On the landscape and lighting assessment districts, obviously, we know that we are deficient in numerous areas of town. Does tree trimming typically fall under those? Are we accounting for tree trimming in our lighting and landscaping?
There is a budget for trees, I believe so. I don't know the amount that we identified, I believe is for that specific line item. But I also recognize what you're saying, and so that's why when I was writing the staff report, decided to, first we have to have an inventory in place to be able to put a plan in place so that we can start, utilizing those funds where they belong, because as you know, we can't just say, well, we're going to go ahead and allocate this whole amount if we don't know exactly how we're going to move forward with that in a plan. So
yeah, because I'd kind of like to make sure that, as funds are being spent through those allocated neighborhoods, that we're allocating for the right trees, and that we're kind of, we know that we have deficiencies in areas that we continue being turned down for. So, I don't want everybody to have less tree trimming because of that. You get what I'm saying?
yes, I do understand.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to, see that comparison as we move that forward and as it's available. How do these numbers compare with previous? It's more?
It's more, but there's also the cost of inflation and fuel and everything like that. And I think the last time we had a rate update was a few years ago.
Okay, and do we anticipate that, although it's an increase, it's going to be enough to handle what we need to get done?
We're pretty confident that it will, be better than what we had in the past years. So it at least will give us, a little bit more wiggle room to tackle those areas that we have to, because right now we're kind of playing catch up.
Right.
And that's what's happening. So I feel comfortable with it. I think you do too, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a few years we kind of just had to hold, and it became a real problem. Obviously, I think we're seeing the effects of that now with diseased trees and overgrown things and problems. Okay, yeah, so those are my questions.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, anybody would like to make a motion or have
I move to
discussion?
approve items number 1, 2, and 3.
I will second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. So we are going to move up item number, hold on while I find it. We're going to move up item number 8E to this point in time. So item 8E, I'm going to turn this over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item here is for City Council to receive a report and discuss the proposed use of American Rescue Plan funds. As in March of last year, government appropriated approximately $350 billion for state and local governments to respond to the COVID-19 emergency and to recover revenues that were lost. At the time, before the final rule came out, the city would have to do a calculation in terms of figuring out what kind of money they lost from tax revenues. Earlier, during our discussions, the first time with the ARPA, one of the main things City Council wanted us to do is to wait and see if the rules change, because City Council really wanted to focus in on, at that point in time, parks, city facilities, and streets. At that point in time, they were ineligible expenditures for those items there. So we waited. Discussion was held at the federal level, and the week of January 10th of this year, they released their final rules, which take effect on April 1st, 2022. Until that time, the current interim final rules remain in effect, and the funds used must be consistent with the interim final rule at this point in time. However, key changes and clarifications in the final rule really offer a lot of flexibility and a broader use of the funds to local governments at this point in time. One of the biggest changes is the replacing of lost public sector revenue. Currently now, under the final rule, every jurisdiction can claim revenue loss of $10 million, whether or not that goes up to how much money you received. For example, we will receive $3.9 million when we get both of our truncations from the government. We would be able to claim that as revenue loss, and then by that, we'd be able to use it on any government service available. They also made some changes to public health and economic impacts, adding broader uses for it, so it didn't have to be specifically for quote-unquote essential workers. They could be for additional city employees that actually did some work, came in contact with people potentially with COVID. Still went in for your water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure that was currently in there, made a few adjustments in there for more flexibility. Again, most of the funds were to be used and talked about during March 3rd of 2021 through December 31st, 2024. And the city would have to commit the use of the funds by December 31st, 2024, and may be spent through December 31st of 2026. And any funds that are not used at the conclusion of December 31st, 2026 would need to be returned to the government at that point in time. With the new rule change, staff is recommending replacing a lost public sector revenue, which gives us the greatest flexibility, and it covers every category that was previously mentioned by uses for the ARPA funds, but then also includes now for us to use it for parks or streets or any other item that we generally do as a government service. And again, mentioned earlier, we would be selecting the standard allowance to determine revenue loss, and under the option, which has been newly offered by the Treasury Department, presumes up to $10 million in revenue has been lost per jurisdiction based upon the formula that they used. And they cast that net widely for everybody in the nation. Proposed uses that we mentioned earlier are kind of focusing on things that we need to enhance customer service to the residents, also improve the quality of life in the community, or park improvements, street repairs, a new HVAC system for efficiency in their air quality at City Hall as examples, a civic recreation program so people can go online to register for programs. On top of that, they could also do a wireless skylogical lighting system where they can schedule to use the lights at Shields Park. No staff would be involved. They just turns on automatically. Upgrade and make repairs to the Boys and Girls Club facility, which is a city-owned building, needs a new roof, needs windows be replaced. A ventilation systems also used for COVID-19, and it qualified pre the changes. And then tonight you had a presentation from Spirit that was a previously allocated, not allocated, but a fund that you could spend money on prior to broadband infrastructure. Tonight, we're just kind of seeking feedback in which direction staff would like to, or city council like to move forward with this. We could also fine tune this as part of the 2022-2023 budget development process to take a look at that, where we want to go with it. I know we had about 2 or 3 other items on the agenda tonight that kind of played into this item here with the parks and everything else. We can talk about those specifically or later on, depending where you'd like to go with that. And the biggest one that I think we need to discuss today is obviously Two Rivers Park, whether it's part of this discussion or the individual presentation after this. That's going to be the biggest one we need to talk about tonight. In total, we will receive $3,796,441, and we should get the second half of our funding in June of 2022. At that point in time, we'll have all the funding available. So at this point in time, we're looking for City Council to discuss options, discuss what they would like to have staff focus in on in spending this funding. If we need to, we can come back with a final report. Whatever your direction is, we will do and carry that out for your approval and guidance. So that's all I have at this point in time.
Okay, all right, comments?
Sure. I have an initial comment that I'd like our fellow council members, Mayor Pro Tem, to consider. We are going to be having our discussion about the parks, about infrastructure, about downtown, but I want to make sure that we cannot forget that these funds are a response to the COVID-19 emergency, and this emergency is ongoing. Just personally wise, I know a young mom who's on a ventilator right now. I mean, this emergency is ongoing. We need to remember in our investments to have human capital investment. We can see the parks and we could see the disrepair, we could see the rundownness of areas of town that we want to improve, but what we can't see is the toll that it's taken on especially young people. And so I just want us to be mindful of that as we do this discussion, and looking at our nonprofits that serve our youth who've really been suffering. One Step a la Vez, Big Brothers, Big Sisters here in Fillmore, and the Boys and Girls Club, beyond their infrastructure needs, the programs that they provide. So I just wanted us to, set the tone, I guess, with that one, just knowing that as we have been looking at spending infrastructure on this, and I think we obviously probably will quite a bit, but let's look at those social service programs. Let's consider them. Let's consider funding things that we know will help the youth. And so we can delve. I have ideas we can delve in more, but I just wanted to start off with that initial comment.
More comments?
Well, my comment, here's another card. My comment is that, this is just my opinion, my suggestion is that things like park improvements, street repairs, HVAC system efficiency, investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, I see those as more things that are already, it should already be in the budget or the general fund that we can use. And I'm in agreement with Christina that we have to look at the result of the pandemic on the people of Fillmore. And so the pandemic didn't necessarily affect the water or the sewer or the broadband infrastructure. I mean, we have to think of, how can these funds be creatively used to benefit the people of Fillmore, to get money back into their pockets, to improve the quality of life again. We are still going through this pandemic, and a lot of people I know have just gone through COVID as well. But coupled with the inflation, the city's still struggling financially. The people of the city are still struggling financially. And I just really my passion is to utilize these funds in a creative way to benefit the small businesses of Fillmore, to benefit people, not it just being a drive-by city, but people coming into Fillmore to spend money and increasing the tax revenue and increasing jobs. I love that, just kind of tying it back to the spirit of Santa Paula. People want jobs. They want entry-level jobs to move up, and so we need to have those. And so, that's my 2 cents for sort of steering it into a certain direction.
And my 2 cents are kind of related to that, but not really, because if we do park improvements, that is quality of life things for our community, for our residents. If we pave the streets, that is quality of life things for people. I mean, you can read every single day on Facebook on how our streets need a lot of care. We've spent about $20 million to redo every street in town. We don't have that kind of money. But this is something where I think we should take this opportunity to look at ways we can fund these other improvements that we've been kicking down the can down the road. I mean, our city's not looking that great, so I think we should use these for the Boys and Girls Club is an example of what Christine and you were talking about. That is going to help the quality of the children. Funding of the Spirit of Santa Paula facility, I see that as helping our community. But those are the things I think we should focus on. Is there's only like three things on this agenda that I think we should focus on. The downtown issue, that's another discussion. We can use some of the funding for that. We can designate some of it, but we're going to have another discussion on that because that's been pulled from the agenda. These are the things that I think we should focus on, but that's just my personal.
I get how you say that things should be allotted for in the budget, the broadband, the streets, whatever. We're a small community. We don't have a lot of money. We don't have a big budget. I know we just got some additional money that we weren't counting for street repairs. I don't necessarily believe that this money should be spent on immediate street repairs. But what I do think is that, we have walk paths in town. Look at Old Telegraph Road. Has anybody walked that lately? Has anybody looked at that? It's a trip hazard. There's a lot of really bad areas on there. So streets, I don't think that we should necessarily spend this on streets, but I think that we should spend it on areas that are going to, go right back to the people and do some people some good. I think that necessities are important. This is one-time money. I think that, the HVAC system in this building is probably 30 years old or more. It was probably when the building was built. I think that that's important. I think, we're talking about indoor air quality. This is a really old system. It's not helpful. This is where we conduct our meetings. I think that's going to be an important aspect. Boys and Girls Club, that's our building. Anybody been in there lately? Well, there's not a lot of pride ownership there. It's severe. We need to do something about the interior of that building. That goes directly to the kids. It's used for basketball, it's used for Boys and Girls Club, and it's important. And we have not looked at that in a very long time. I think that's critical. Downtown enhancements, I get it, we've moved the other agenda item, but I'm going to bring it up here because, it is part of this discussion as well. Maintenance is a problem. We aren't good at maintaining things. Our city we're great at putting up good things, but maintaining them, we don't do it. Been to the bus stop lately? I was there yesterday, taking more pictures. We have got to do something for our community that is going to show that we are serious about having a clean, beautiful community. We have beautiful new homes that are building here. People are flocking to this community because they want a better lifestyle. We need, as a city, to portray that. We need to clean things up. Does that mean we need to give a bunch of money to only downtown? Absolutely not. This money needs to go a long ways because it's a big resource for us. I think that we need to be very wise about what we're picking. Funding the spirit, we've talked about that already. I think that's critical. I think that's something that, us as a community, we need to be aware of. We have a growing problem, and we have nothing here in town. So supporting them is critical to what our needs are. Broadband, no. Yeah, it's important. No, I don't believe that that's a good use of COVID money. I think we need to be very careful. So that's my thoughts.
I have a question of the city manager. The money that people have not paid for their water bill, could we apply for that for the 10 million? You mentioned that the city said that they said that cities probably lost 10 million. Could we apply for that?
No, that's the maximum that you can claim out of what you get from the federal government. So if you got $20 million, you can say 10 of it was lost revenue.
Oh, darn it.
For us, 3.9 is that. And we did receive a water subsidy from the state of California that we are currently working on right now for residents.
Okay, we already did receive that.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. It's currently in the works to be getting out to the public in the next probably 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
It's a short turnaround time with the state.
And I would suggest that we ask the city to go back and give us a cost estimate on this stuff before we make any decisions, because we don't know how much HVAC system would, and I know ours is 30 years old, but we have people that are losing their homes because of the cost increase in homes, and people that are becoming homeless because they can't find a home, or they're back living with their parents. And so I think we need to think of people before we think of objects. And I agree with Diane. We gave 2 more workers for the maintenance department, and yet our parks, the bathrooms are filthy. And the Two Rivers Park, the stalls don't even have a closure on it. There's a broken fixture. Maintenance has to be ongoing. It can't be a one-time maintenance. It has to be built into our budget. So what I'd like to see us do is make decisions on what we want to have happen, and then find out how that's going to be. If we're improving a park, then we have to put in our ongoing budget the maintenance for those areas so that we can have a pretty downtown. If we fix up the downtown, it needs to stay fixed up, and we need to do our part for that. And the same thing with park and recreation and streets and bike paths and all of that stuff. So I'd like to suggest, and maybe I'll make that motion, is that we ask any other suggestions people have that you need funding costs estimates on, come back and have a really in-depth conversation at another time.
I mean, Lynn, you touched on something that's really important. Downtown's great. Downtown's wonderful. It's where people go. We hope that people congregate. Unfortunately, that's not always happening. Our parks are a major problem. They are a major problem. I walk through Dolores Day and Shields Park on a regular basis. The shade structures are rusted and rotting. I'm waiting for them to fall down. I go into the restrooms. They're absolutely disgusting. They need to be rebuilt, and we just kind of move along. There was a trash can in the middle of the park, and I walk every single day. 2 months the trash had not been emptied. 2 months. It was stinking so bad. I think I called Dave and I said, how long is this going to go on? Who's supposed to empty the trash? Well, it's Harrison. Okay, but who's checking on these things? I walked yesterday. There's broken utility boxes. The lids are broken on a whole lot of the areas that I walk. That's a trip hazard. Who's following up on this? So again, a lot of this is going back to simple maintenance issues, but it makes us look really stupid. We want to clean up the downtown, but our parks are falling apart. So again, I don't want to just throw a bunch of money at things because that's the big government's way of handling things. Let's just throw money at it. No, throwing money at things doesn't fix any problem. It just creates more of a problem. So, we have more people in public works. We have to leverage our agreements with the landscaping people. We have to find a protocol to get things done. We used to have an app. Remember that, Dave? Years ago, we had an app. Take a picture of this and we'll get to it. I don't know what happened to the app, but I know I used it a lot, probably too much. That's probably why we canceled the app, because it was me sending in all kinds of pictures. But
maybe that's why they took it down.
Probably, I used it.
Well, if I can, I'll also add a couple more comments to that, Mayor. The issues of maintenance, in my opinion, is an issue beyond the ARP. I think that we, as a city council and as a budget ad hoc committee, when we meet, have to see about looking at our general fund and knowing that on a regular basis we've got to do more with maintenance. And so I see these ARP funds, American Rescue Plan funds, as there is a project. Two Rivers Park is a project. Yes, there's maintenance. Additionally, there's maintenance that needs to be done, but not seeing ARP funds for those maintenance things. I see ARP funds as a project where it's one way right now, invest money, it changes the park, similar to downtown. That if there is a project that we're planning to do around improvements, beautification, it is a certain way right now. Invest this one-time funds. It will change things, and then we look at maintenance through. I know we pulled the item, so we won't discuss it too much more, but we'll talk more about that, what that maintenance means, and where those maintenance funds may come from. So yeah, that's my feedback on that. Really saying that we've got to look at our budget, at our general fund, and make a commitment that we're going to have funds within our city budget to do this.
I think we need numbers, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
I think in order to speak for myself, to make a really good decision on this, we need numbers. I need to kind of know, what are we looking at? What is the Boys and Girls Club facility? What can we put into that to make a big difference? That is our building. And it's a community use building, and it's, we need to do work out there. There's no question about that. How much should we give Spirit? Can we give Spirit in consideration of the other things we need to do? I think we need some numbers so that we can kind of have something to shoot at.
I have a question for Dave. If we pick a couple categories here, can we then assign this, or can the budget committee then take this over, and can they resolve this? Because I think we're going to sit here and bat back and forth all night. I mean, we could be here all night and talking. I'm just trying to look at, is there some categories we can limit it to and say, the budget committee, that's your job. You guys need to, you need to iron out the numbers with them, put it in the budget, and then we can come back and we can look at it.
I think that's a really good idea, Mark. I'm not sure we need to. I would love to see if all of these categories could have some numbers to them. And on the one that has for the sign up and receive notification on city programs, events, and meetings, I'd like to also include that we need more recreation itself. We have the basketball signups, but at one time we used to have art classes and we used to have music classes, and we don't have any of that anymore. And so what we have is festivals, which are fun, but recreation also includes activities for children that are not involved in the traditional sports. And so, or have different attitudes or different areas they like to be in that don't have the money to pay for lessons. And so I'd like to include that also. And I do think that broadband is important because we have a low-income community, and we've been getting a lot of information on broadband and how if you're not on it and don't know how to use it, and there are alternative things that we can do for that. I'm not sure that ARP monies is what we need to use it for. But
I agree with that. I think with broadband, we only have certain carriers in town, so if they're not doing broadband, I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Right, and
so
I don't know. I don't know enough.
It's a discussion that needs to go deeper than what we're talking about right here.
So this isn't really up for a vote. Do you have enough information, David, to
I have a real quick question for Dave.
I'm sorry.
I thought that Ernie was looking into broadband, and he was getting us some kind of grants on broadband. Is that still in the works, or?
Yeah, they're still working with Ventura County. They're started working from Ventura out to here. They're applying for grants from that standpoint. But again, this is one of the items that money could have been used for. We saw the initial list was for broadband, and they've been pushing that from the federal level. From a staff, if you give us categories which are want to get into, we can get the hard numbers for physical items. Then if you're talking about donating to a specific cause, that's really up to whatever. Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? We work on the downtown for beautification. And if we had, some direction in terms of we like to, park improvements, what's it going to take to do this park or do that, we can come back with a whole list of different things, whether it's lights, repairing some of the restrooms. We can get all that city council, majority council wants us to do, and get that solid direction, more rifle shot versus shotgun shot, so we make sure we cover what the majority of city council wants to have brought back. Because one thing I don't want to do is do all this work, come back and say, hey, what about this? But that wasn't mentioned or didn't think about it. So hopefully we can work with the budget committee to give them on some authorization as well and leeway on this item here as part of the process. We can really dig into it and get some solid numbers for you to you back. I think you're really looking at spending this in June time frame as we finalize our budget from that standpoint.
So I just want to real quick jump in. I do have a speaker card on this, so I should probably do that now. Joey, that would be you. If you'd come on back up, please. You have 3 minutes.
Mayor McCall, members of the City Council, thank you for taking my comment again. Just as a member of the public, as a resident of Fillmore, it would be nice to see some numbers attached to these items so that, as someone giving input, as a member of the community, you're asking me the same thing I am, I guess, just a little more standing to figure out what's possible and what's not. And the other thing beyond that is, it's a lot of money, $3 million, $3.5 million, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, maybe. So, maybe it is worth having a longer discussion than usual about figuring out what you're going to do with it. So, I have my preferences. I guess no one else is here to comment. Maybe they don't feel safe, whatever. Maybe some more outreach, invest a little bit of money and some more outreach about this money so that you feel like you're really giving the community what they want with this kind of one-time windfall. That's my 2 cents. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joy.
Okay, so where are we?
Should we just go down the list and see if at least 3 people want that discussed, and then any items that haven't, I'd like to bring up bike paths. I think that is important for our community. During the pandemic, boy, people are out riding bikes and walking more than I've ever seen before.
I think we talked about that, though. A lot of the problem is the width of our streets. We don't have the width to accommodate the bike paths, and on Central, it's the diagonal parking. There's not a lot of places to put it.
Well, we can look. I mean, that we can discuss that one. So I don't know, do you want to go down it and decide, or how do you want to do that? But we don't have to decide now. We're just asking for money to give us a question as how much this would cost, so we can get an idea for it. Does that sound good, Diane?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need to make it that formal. So,
Okay.
Christina, why don't you just say what, your heavy hitters are? Let's
Okay.
kind of go from there.
So mine is, I'm proposing to eliminate, I agree with you on street repairs. Just take that off, not need estimate on that one particular. And let's see here. So my my keys are the Boys and Girls Club facility. It's not on here, but like I said, I'd like to talk with both boys and maybe get almost like a needs assessment from them, from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and from One Step All of Us. If if we can have a conversation, say what are your needs, given a and see about what we can do with that. I know One Step All of Us in particular is trying to get a mental health therapist, and so they we can find out a little bit more about that. So just adding sort of getting a little bit from those three organizations, the social services for youth, finding out some more information from them about what they need. So the Boys and Girls Club facility, looking at park improvements, and where is it listed here? About the downtown. Is that on? Do we have that on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah, downtown enhancements, and Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, both like the online registration, that sort of thing, and other potentially one use things to help youth with classes. Like I said, Lynn, I know we do need to have more regular classes, but that again is more maintenance, something coming regularly from that budget that we know is not big. But if you're looking at one-time deals again to help the youth during this time, that's good. Oh, and of course spirits. I'll add spirit in, of course, but that social service group.
And I would like to see if when we're talking about the community as a whole, I'd like to go to the community as a whole and ask questions like the downtown enhancements to increase. I'd like to have the business owners get together and say what they need, so that we don't just do a blanket thing, but that we really are careful about making it appropriate to the individual business, as well as what they need in front of their business, the plants or the sidewalk or whatever. I would like to see if we could help some of the businesses that are coming into our town, like the theater. I'd like to see if we could give some money to the theater. He's going to need to do a lot of work in repairing it. It's been abandoned and abused for a long time, and it could be a core of our town. So I'd like to see if we could add the theater to it as to what the cost would be and what it's going to cost the theater owner. And I'd like to see if we could have a meeting. I know that later on in the budget is the Spanish interpretation, but I'd like to get a meeting of Spanish speakers together to say, how can we best meet your needs? And what kind of information do you need to access or to get from the city? And how is it best to do that? I know when I first came, I went to an exercise class that there were about 30 women, and they all spoke Spanish. And at that time, we didn't know how to let people know what was going on if you spoke Spanish. And I asked them what would be the best way, and they're the ones that said, put it on the back of the water bill, because we read our water bill. But we don't do that anymore. I'd like to have that reenacted, but there may be other ways that we can, because we do have a large component that just speaks Spanish, and I'd like to be sure that we're reaching all individuals. So those are my issues.
Okay, so Simone, your turn.
So I think, Lynn, did you say about bike paths?
Yeah.
Did you say that? Well, so I would like to revisit that. Even if this has been on the city council before, I would like to revisit what the bike path situation looks like. My 81-year-old parents come down from Mammoth and love to bike. And so like, it's just, it's part of, and I just think it's part of recovering from the pandemic is people getting healthy and being outside. I mean, we all see this different way of how people are recovering from the pandemic. And that's why we're all so diverse here on city council, is because we see things a different way, right? But that's important because there are people in town who see it. I see, for example, bike path, health. Parks are important, but I know we're doing a lot of grants for parks now. So I'm kind of like, there's just, there's been a lot of grant situations. So let's look at where we're at with the grants and then see where we can possibly supplement some, of this rescue fund money. Boys and Girls Club, absolutely. Downtown enhancements, absolutely. I think updating the city's webpage can be rolled into that. So when we were looking at moving to Fillmore, and I Googled Fillmore and did some research on Fillmore, that's the first thing that came up, and that's really important. People want to watch these meetings and they don't even know where to find it on the website. Funding, Spirit of Santa Paula, absolutely. I don't think I've cried in a mask before, but I did tonight, and I was like, is my mask going to wipe my tears? That's really important, and I love the fact that they're transitioning people into working and living lives again. And those are the most important things for me. So,
okay, Mark?
Okay, I'm going to say park improvements, but I'm going to broaden it to say bike paths and anything else associated with recreation. I meant because we could go on and say we're going to go down to this, and and the HVAC system. I concur with Diane. I've been sitting in this building now. This is going on my 16th, 17th year, and we've never had an HVAC replacement. The Boys and Girls Club, definitely. Downtown enhancements, definitely, and funding for a Spirit. Those are my push-button items.
Okay. So for me, park improvements, let's talk about it. I mean, I understand there's grants, but I think it's more than Two Rivers Park at this point. Two Rivers Park is important, but I think that we are foregoing the other parks that a lot of people also use. That's important. The HVAC system, let's get some numbers. I'd like to see that before we make a solid decision, but I want those numbers. I think the online permitting system for the community development, I think I'm the only one that picked that, but I would like to see if we can streamline that. Let's make it easier. The fees are there, everything's there. It might make things more appealing. Updating the city's webpage. This is something that we've done before. It was pathetic the second time around. It was even worse the time before that. We need to fix this. It's the first image that we give to people before they're even in town. So that's really important to me. The geo delivery communication for citizens, I think that's really important. If we could do something even that would include text messaging services through that would be amazing. That would keep people up to date, emergency stuff, whatever. I think that's important. Boys and Girls Club, absolutely. That facility is really bad. And I mean, I would even go so far as to talk about the fire station. How about the sleeping arrangements at the fire station? Has anybody been there lately? It's terrible. It really is. And I think, we didn't add that, but that's something that's important. Downtown enhancements, absolutely. And I don't know to what degree, but I think it's something that I definitely want to discuss further. That's going to be important. Spirit funding, absolutely. And bike paths, recreation, goes back to the same thing, recreation in general. Yeah. Does that give you enough?
Yep.
Okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. Very good. So
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Is this items that are coming back to us, or is this going to go to the budget committee?
Dave, do you want to get some numbers and go to the budget committee and kind of iron things out, or?
Yeah, when we do that.
I'd prefer that also.
We
then
can
we're not sitting back here and.
We can kind of streamline a little bit at that point?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then come back to council with a sharper pencil. Okay. very good. All right, so with that, we're going to move on to item number 8B, and this is to consider whether to authorize supplemental funding for Two Rivers Park project. I'll turn that over to staff.
Which one are we on here? Oh.
Isn't this kind of covered?
Yeah, this one, as you're aware, we entered a contract last year with California Consulting to do an improvement project for Two Rivers Park. As most of you are aware, the fields are in less than adequate shape. We have soccer out there, football out there, softball out there, use it continuously. We've gone out for a grant before for the project, or for the area, did not come through. This is one of our second or first heavily used park next to Shields Park. Right now, we have groups calling us saying, hey, we've got to do something with it. We know we have to do something with it. We have an opportunity right now to apply for a grant to help fix the park. When we first did this, we talked about putting in new turf out there, replace the irrigation because it's working, but it's not conducive to a sports fields. And we got the proposal, we kind of come back to City Council, let you know where we're at. We got all the final numbers in last week. That's why it was thrown on the agenda, because the deadline is February 1st. We have 4 different proposals for the projects. The first project, and this is going to be a complete overhaul of the park, it would be put in 2 synthetic turf fields, option A, and that has a soccer field, full-length youth field, also with the football field. This is one configuration. New turf on the baseball, new brick infield on the baseball diamonds as well. Bring it all up so it's all nice and usable. When you take a look at that, however, the cost comes in at $6.6 million. Concept 2 or B, it's the same as concept A. The difference is the field configuration. If we go down this direction, staff would recommend concept B in the sense if you're having soccer games going on, you can separate the parents and the players on both fields this direction, where the other one, you'd have the goalie being right up to a football field or another soccer field, which is not very conducive. So this is a $6 million item here. Item concept C, to take a look at, would be to try to phase this into 2 projects. There'd be no artificial turf. There's just strictly new natural turf on the ground, the irrigation system. And what we need out there, and what you would see, is a new outfield for the baseball, new soccer fields with football as well. And they would lay about as needed on the field. This kind of gives you a picture of what it would look like. And this here's a $4 million project. Concept D, you're looking at $2.6 million to get, basically a third of the complex up to a plane surface that would be welcomed. And you'd have out there, a new soccer field, new practice facility for football as well, all natural grass turf, above ground watering system. Again, this proposal here is $2.6 million. As we originally discussed, we're trying to do a project for around $1.1 million with the money we had on hand. Hence, the discussion tonight was, for the project itself, the city must have 50% of the funds for the project. And so we'll need, if we do option D, we need an allocation around $200 and some odd thousand. However, the state prefers to have all the money allocated for the project up front, which would be $2.6 million either now or allocated after award of the contract. So for council, do we still want to move on with this application, this grant project, to apply for? I think that's the first question at the numbers we're asking about. If the answer is yes, and staff's recommending concept D due to the cost involved with the other 2 proposals at this point in time, is we could dedicate ARPA funds to it to make up the difference, which would be a huge hit, obviously. Or City Council can take a look at allocating funds to general fund reserves as an option. Neither one of those need to be made tonight per se. What we're looking for really is, yes, we want to do the $2.6 million, If we are awarded that contract, we will then determine will it come out of ARPA funds, general fund reserve, or a combination of the two. That way we're not making the allocation. We do have the funding available. And if we get awarded this grant, then we'd have it allocated $2.6 million, and we would get back $1.3 billion when the project is over, a reimbursement from the state at that point in time. Allocating close to $4 million out of our general fund, that's almost all of it that's left right now. A little bit will be left over. That'd be all the ARPA funding, which we don't want to do at this point in time either. And the first one just can't do. So really tonight for City Council is one, do you want to continue on with the grant application? If the answer is yes, then are we ready to allocate the funding potentially for $2.6 million, knowing that we will get back $1.3 billion of the project? Currently, we have about $1.1 million in park diff fees, and then around, I think it's close to $900,000 in Two Rivers Park's development fees that can only be used at that facility. It can't be used at any other park. So you're looking for a brief appropriation of around $285,000 off the top of my head, and then we just get this submitted February 1st, just a deadline. And we have a few other items to fill out on the application tomorrow. So that's why it's being brought to you tonight. And again, we saw the numbers. We knew we had to come back and talk to City Council about this and get a feeling of where do you guys want to go with this. As you know, they have the drip irrigation system out there. And over time, the irrigation system is wobbly and gophers have ate the holes. And so there's holes out there. We fill them up. They still get dug out. If you play in the outfield, you have a chance to catch a nice one in the chin. As I tell my friends, I'd rather play third base, 10 feet from home plate than the outfield at this place, just due to how the infield is structured. Football things use a different location right now. We have a lot of use from soccer. That is the number one use right now throughout the city. And we're just about to gear up into the sports seasons with softball, travel soccer, and all those things overlap right now. And so this is the big question for City Council. What do you want to do out here at this facility?
I do have a public speaker card on this. Let me just ask one question, though, real quick, Dave. So I'm just trying to do the math in my head. So basically, the appropriation of $1,517,840, but then you're talking about the budget adjustment of 208. Is that because the difference of those we have in park diff funds?
Correct. The difference with we'd add our 1.1 that we have to the 1.5 million, so that'd be the difference we need for the overall allocation.
Okay.
And then for our 50% match right now, we need to allocate to $208,917.50.
Okay, so, because we basically have the other $1.5 million sitting there, so we'd have to allocate the $208,000 in order to say, yes, we have our half in order to apply for the grant.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I had that straight in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? And I do want to call
I have one question.
Okay.
I do too.
And I know this is going to be, you probably can't answer this question. How long does it take usually to get notified of these grants? I mean, is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? I mean, how long?
You're talking sometimes 3 months to 6 months.
Okay.
I've heard up at 9 months taking time.
Okay.
We submitted one, end of November, first part of December. We still haven't heard back. They're indicating probably close to March, April timeframe, due to the number of applications that they do get. I think last time we heard back within a month and a half.
Wow.
But that was due to the fact they were funding a lot of brand new parks versus repairs at that point in time.
So also too is what, if we don't get the grant, then the money would just go back into the ARP funding and we have to allocate it somewhere else anyway, correct? I mean, the 208.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Somebody else had a question?
I have, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear you well, Dave. On the DIF funding and the Two Rivers Park specific funds, what were those numbers? And is that was that already part of the 1.1 of where we came to having the 1.1?
Yeah, that's already part of the
Okay.
1.1 million, because we are
Thank you.
unable to spend those funds at any other location except for the DIF funds. We could spend at other parks for new improvements,
Okay.
but they would throw it over here
We
with the
threw it
new
over here to be
new
part of the
irrigation and
1.1.
everything else.
Got
Correct.
it. Okay, I just wanted clarification. I couldn't hear you. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn?
I read in the grant, David, that it said that we also needed to be able to prove that we could pay the whole thing.
That is correct. That's why there's two options. You could allocate all the money up front right now and say, we'll do 2.6 million right away. Or the other option, which I'm recommending, is that we say we had the 50% already, and then once we are awarded the contract,
Yes,
City
okay.
Council will then allocate the remaining funding.
Got it.
And one of the reasons why I'm suggesting that is, as you know, when we get into these budgeting things and we start allocating money to the general fund, things get spent real quick without people, hey, we got money in here from City Council. Our staff say, hey, look, we have an extra $500,000 here. Let's spend it. We put it in there for this particular reason. Just see it happen in various cities and careers. So I'd much rather have us do it. We get awarded the grant. Because we had the funding, we will allocate at that point in time.
My other question is, I'm ignorant of the degree of participation of the different sports. And I noticed on Plan C, D's up there and it's similar. I guess D and C are the same. That you're taking away a baseball field, putting in a football field, and 2 soccer fields. And what communication have you had with the different sports teams or gathering of information to find out that in fact we need 1 fewer baseball field and 2 soccer fields? I just want to know the information where you're coming from.
Yeah, this is the current layout that we currently have out there at the facility.
Right.
So when the baseball season is not playing, soccer would kind of go on the field as late as is here. What this is showing for Concept D is that no work would be done in the gray area. You'd still have the baseball diamond there, you still have your soccer field during soccer time, but there'd be no improvements there. The only improvements for Concept D would be the green area out there that's highlighted.
And the gray areas, do they have gopher holes?
The whole place has gopher holes.
That's what I
and
thought.
they have
Actually, I
undulations
walk there a
everywhere.
lot, and I consider it my park because often I'm the only one there. Because nobody else goes there because they can't walk in the field. So yesterday, just to be sure, because someone told me, don't walk in those fields, I decided to walk across the field. And there are a lot of gopher holes. So, even with 2,617,840, it's just sad that we can't do better. And how about the lighting? Does that include lighting?
There's no lighting, no.
Wow.
No, if you want to put lighting out there to do the entire park correctly, you're looking close to $1.5 to $2 million.
Just the lighting itself?
That's just lighting. And on top of that, they would need to do testing of the bases that are currently out there. The initial discussion with the lighting company was that would need to be ripped out. It wasn't put in to handle the lights. And you probably need to do infrastructure with the wiring out there as well, since it's been out there for so long.
Thank you very much, Dave.
One extra question on that, speaking of things that aren't covered here, is have we ever had an estimate of shade over the children's play area?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever looked for funding for what that would be?
I believe Parks Recreation staff is looking at that for a different grant.
Okay.
That's a Prop 68 grant they're looking at doing,
Okay.
which we applied for. Those can run between $15,000 to $45,000 depending on the size that you put out there. Kind of like the one we have out there at the new Rio Vista Park.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to get, if you'd ever heard of a number there, because that's important. It really is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, our public speaker declined, so we can continue speaking.
Declined, okay.
What does everybody think? What does everybody want to do?
Well, I think we need to go ahead with the recommendation of the city.
Let me just ask one more question. If we don't get the grant, we can choose to not move forward, right? We aren't tied to this?
That's correct. Last time we didn't get it, we did not move forward. At that point in time, I think we just sit together with council, go out there with the sports groups and the community and say, we have, the $900,000 spent here at the park. How do you want this to be spent?
Okay.
And kind of go from there.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I did forget one other question. We have a reserve. Last meeting, we talked about the reserve from the homeowners association, the different areas. And there's money in that maybe could go towards this too, because that serves everyone. All the parks serve everyone. And so have we looked, and when the budget committee sits down, maybe look at that also? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. The last month, we approved the carryover money from the homeowners associations. I think that's what it's called, or the divisions of different groups of housing, and said how much we are going to hold over, maybe that.
I think you're talking about the DIF funds?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. Yeah, yes, the DIF funds, that's what we'd be using.
That's what we would be using.
A part of it for anything that's brand new.
Right, there are limits on
Correct.
DIF. It can't be used to redo something,
Right.
but to the extent you're putting something that wasn't there before, then you can use it. So we can't, even though we have a bit of park DIF, we can't use it for this.
Right, but we could put shade over or we could put a bench for parents to sit, or a picnic area, or something like that.
Do we do our own landscaping out there, or is it covered by our landscaping people?
The landscape people, they come out there, I think it's once a week.
Okay, so do they
contract.
fill gopher holes? Do they deal with the gophers?
They've been doing that out there. One of the things that makes it so inviting is the water lines are right there, right below the surface, and they're eating into the water lines for the reclaimed water out there. And so we also have Veolia, they're out there probably 2 or 3 times a month replacing lines, filling things in due to the...
Are we using those irrigation lines to water? We are, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's where our effluent water goes
Correct.
back into those fields.
Yep.
So what makes us confident that we're not going to have a gopher problem if we move forward with this?
Yeah, there's no guarantee one way or another. That's the problem,
I mean, because I would hate to spend $2.6 million and have the same problem.
Yeah. The only thing would be the difference, there could be above ground, obviously.
Yeah,
You're going to
that
get
would
more
help.
usage out there. With the less usage, they get scared away with people being out there all the time. With people aren't using the parks, they kind of get more comfortable out there.
And not to get graphic, but what kind of abatement are we doing?
I think it's humane or humane.
I'm not even
animal, or
asking for
however,
that. I
Maybe
mean,
better not to ask.
That wasn't the intent of the questions, but we are doing something, I trust.
Yes. We're doing it there and also at Shields Park.
Yeah, because it's bad over there too. It should.
And those have been calmed down and slowed down since we had a lot of usage.
But there
out
is no underground irrigation at Shields
Correct.
Park. So that's what makes me ask the question, what makes us feel confident that if we go through with a $2.6 million project, we're not going to have the same problems? Or how are we going to deal with it? Or do we have a plan to deal with it?
The only plan you're going to take is make sure you can contract, have somebody go out there weekly. And, there'd be a cost we have to decide on city council to pay for eradication if it were to come to that point in time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one more question of David. I forgot to mention the bike, I think it's called Pump Park or Bike Park?
Pump track.
Pump track.
Pump track. I've got to get that down. There are people that come from all over to that pump track. I've talked to people from Burbank, and they bring groups of kids because they love our pump track and they love our community. They love being here and have it open and not closed and buildings everywhere. But we have not maintained there's a really nice little kiosk sign there, post, and it's been totally destroyed. It could be put.
You want to come up?
It could be put.
You want to come up?
Which
It could be improved. We could put up there the stores that you can go to, the restaurants they can go to, and when we put something up, we need to be sure we maintain it because it looks pathetic.
Can we get Parks and Rec working on that?
which
could that
side
be
are
something
you
Parks and
talking
Rec
about?
It's up above. It's on the top when they start down the route, and there's a cute little
Want me to call you up?
bulletin
Come on up.
board. Maybe it's a bulletin board. It's not a kiosk. It's a bulletin board with a cover.
Yeah, we can take.
Lonnie has an idea.
Hi, Lonnie Farr, yes. Hello, everybody. We must walk at different times because I go out there daily. Yeah, I'm out there daily. Anyway, I noticed it probably a couple of weeks ago that all of a sudden it's been ruined. And I noticed it made me really sad. I mean, because there are parents out there with little ones trying to teach them how to ride that pump track. But something needs to be done there, at least so that way, that's a great idea. The restaurants, at least we have something so that they can see what's going on, to visit downtown or something. But that does need to be addressed because it looks really tacky. It looks really bad. So, no, and the only other thing I want to say is we have so many people that are so upset that the dog park is not maintained or there is no dog park. So that is one other consideration. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Okay.
So I just would like to clarify with the grants, because there's another grant that's in the process for, just to clarify, how many grants are we looking at for Two Rivers? Do you know? Is it more than two?
Yeah, the first one is specific to dealing with the ADA issues at the park.
Right.
And we're waiting to hear back on that.
Right.
We anticipate being successful. They'll take care of all the ADA issues through a Prop 68 grant. This is the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, completely separate grant.
Right.
To go after, and this is going after the ball fields.
Okay.
At this location.
And then is it possible to apply for this grant for other parks in our area for improvement? I mean,
yes.
Can you for the same grant? I think that would be, if we're able to do that, I think that would be a great idea for the other parks as well.
Yes, we'd be able to do that. We'd be needing to do it probably for the next round of applications.
Okay.
And then we can bring back proposals to City Council to take a look at. And then one of the main reason why we were applying to tours is that we had funding available for the project already. So when we go out to the other areas, we need to identify a source of revenue to pay for the projects. So for example, we have at least 1.1 million dedicated here, another 1.5 be allocated. If we're doing Shields Park for this cost, be all 2.6 be coming from some form of money, whether it's general fund reserve. So we can go out, we can also take a look at what specifically we want to go for at that point in time, whether it's new shelters, playground equipment, those things are eligible under the programming.
Okay.
And we can definitely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think just the utilization of grants is really important for these things as much as we can. So that is.
Okay, so are we making motions? What are we doing? Somebody was, and we stopped like 4 times to ask more questions, so.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we do the alternative, which is that allocation of the necessary $208,917.50 to let them know that we have half of that, and then upon award, right? Upon award, look at allocation. Because if we go with the recommendation right now, that's 1.5 in ARP, and that takes 1.5 off of the ARP discussion. Am I right?
Okay, I second that.
So where were you recommending we brought the money out of, though? Which number, Christina? I just need to ask for clarification. From the ARP funding or from the general fund? Because there was 2 options for the 208,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. We could make the option of the ARP money, 208.
Okay. Are you still seconding?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so, yeah, just to make note, that's item number 2, alternative number 2. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, very good. Motion carries. Okay, let's move on, please. And I'm all messed up on numbers here. So we're going to go to 8D. We skipped 8C. So 8D. And this is regarding the Fillmore Gateway signs, and I'm going to turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, yet again. This one kind of also plays into the ARPA funds and also general fund reserve discussion. We have received a great presentation by Renee Swanson with the Rotary Club. She gave a great proposal back in October. City Council came back to talk to staff what are ways potential fund our share, if you will. And city staff went back as a group and looked at the overall concept. The signs are great, but we also have a number of projects coming to town that are going to be covering the west end and east end of town with gateway signs. And we felt that we're getting too many gateway signs at the end of town. And what we thought would be a great idea, if council wants to go on and keep the project moving forward, is really get the arch in the downtown area where we currently have, I think it's 3 poles where we put all our banners across the street. If we could take a look at maybe modifying the arch to fit in that area there and still have the banners across, that'd be a good alternative for the city council to consider. And you're not going to clash with the new gateway entranceway by the bridges, which should be done in probably about 2 months. The west end of town by the Mike Marinelli Perry Ranch property, whoever comes there and develops are required to build a gateway entrance out there as well. And if we want to keep this design plan for them to build that gateway, we can do that. So here's the gateway sign we've approved for you guys to build as an option. And then the other was really taking a look at the downtown archway. I think that'd be a nice compliment. We were talking about how can we spruce up the downtown area, get some visual off the 126. And then it came back to how are you going to finance this, Dave? And one of the things that we had talked about earlier, mentioned, it was an eligible expense, was using the American Rescue Plan Act funding for our 25% for the total project. That would be for both entryway signs and also the archway of $163,000. This was not budgeted. If City Council wants to have that discussion with ARPA moving forward, that's fine. If City Council wants to go into the reserves and take money out to pay for this, they can at this point in time. But this has not been budgeted, as we mentioned earlier. And again, we're trying not to get the competing signs in there. And I'm not too sure what the cost of the archway, if we decided to do just the archway, maybe we could come back with a number that might be a little lower. Because right now this is for all the signs for $650,000 to go in there. And then one of the concerns, not a concern, what we want to keep in mind moving forward and talking with the city attorney is that we contribute fund to this project and may kick in prevailing wage on the overall project for the installation and everything else. And I don't know if it was bid with prevailing wage into it or not. If it was, that's great. If it wasn't, we'll need to consider that as well. And that'd be probably about a 15 to 30% markup on the cost of doing the project under prevailing wages. So, overall, it's a beautiful plan, beautiful concept. We've got already have gateway plan for both ends of town coming in right now, and then in staff belt. If we try to make any of them make it work, would be the downtown, do a nice arch downtown, still be able to hang your banners up there, but have a nice welcome to Fillmore up top. And again, that's an overall discussion with the central business district and everything else that's been coming up here. So that's where we're at. At this point in time, it's $163,000 for the overall project. If council's interested in just doing the arch, for example, I'll sit down and talk with Renee and find out what the cost would be for that and how much they'd be asking for the arch. So I don't have anything else for my presentation.
Okay, questions, discussion?
I have a question for Dave. First off, if we're going to go this direction, I prefer to use the ARP funding. I don't want to touch the general plan reserves. I think that's kind of taboo at this point. And then the other question I have is, I assume if we use the ARP funding, there'll be some mechanism or some contractual agreement with Rotary or whoever is going to do this, that if they don't meet a certain deadline, that our funding, it goes away and it comes back to us, because, I mean, we have deadlines to meet on this. We can't sit around for 4 years and wait for them to get their funding together. So I just want to make sure that we have some kind of mechanism in place.
Yeah, I think if council authorized, we have to put an agreement together with that stipulated in there and put a due date to have it built and expend the funds. Because right now we're locked into December 31st of 2024 to have everything allocated and spent by 2 years later.
But I mean, that means we would need to leave ourselves enough time to find a way to plan something, design it, and spend it.
So let me just reconfirm what we're talking about here. The staff recommendation is to discuss replacing the current archway, not in lieu of the plans that Rotary drew up. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about? Okay, because we're looking more for the unified signage thing throughout all the different stuff that we're doing.
Correct.
So in the interim, okay. And that interim cost to us is $163,000?
That was everything involved, the arches and the 2 entryways from both ends of town.
Right.
And I don't have the breakdown of what it was for the arch.
Okay, so.
And then if we do just the arch, was asked, we work with them, find out what that number is. And we can give like 20, with their, they're asking for 25% of that, we can find out what that number is. That's
Okay. Yeah, why don't one of you guys come up and speak?
Hi. Good evening. My name is Andy Klitich. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Fillmore. Thank you for having me today. I'm not going to present again the whole project. We obviously, from the staff report, you guys are looking at not doing the gateways. The whole idea of this was to have a welcome to Fillmore sign. We felt that our old one had gotten smashed in a car crash on Pole Creek, and we wanted a welcome to Fillmore sign. It started as we have $10,000 to throw at a project. Let's do something. And between Renee and a couple other organizations in town, it grew into this big, beautiful plan that we're hoping we can do. Now, I understand with the development on the east and west end of town, and apparently the one on the east end of town is already in construction and will be done soon. So we're trying to come up with a unified plan that we could hand it to the developer and say, okay, you know, if you have to build something, can you build something to these specs to give that community feel, that branded Fillmore look to it is what we were going for. And the cost, correct me if I'm wrong, Renee, but the cost on the archway over Central was about $400,000, and the gateway entrances to town was about $100 more or less, without looking at the spreadsheet, just to give you guys round numbers. So with that, Renee had, I think you guys saw the budget that we worked up, with 25% coming from the city council and the remainder coming from public and private donations through our 501c3 Rotary Foundation. And we're hoping that we can make this work somehow, whether we have to pivot and shift to use funds to beautify our community or to keep the project going forward.
Okay.
I think I answered your questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from anyone?
I just have a comment. I, having been on the Planning Commission, I wasn't aware of the total entry idea that had already been begun. And so originally I thought this would be really exciting, but since that's already in the plans, I think this would be a competition except for downtown. I think that's a great idea to work with Renee or whomever and really, because I think if we do too much, it will be confusing and not be cohesive. So that's my thought.
So just to clarify, if you didn't do the entry to town, then if you just did the arch, then it's 400,000, and is that correct? Sorry, I need to pull someone up to answer that.
Since I'm a little more intimate to the numbers, it's 400,000 for the arch going to downtown, and it's 250 for both signs, two-sided, 19 feet tall steel breakaway bolts for at each end of the town. And what we did do is we included a lot of different people on our committee, including the city The city was on the committee, as well as all the different service organizations, and we had a very cross-functional, we even had developers on that committee. And so, this has been going on for about a year, and so we were thinking that we did our due diligence to look at the look and feel of the town, the look and feel of the developments, and the downtown area to make it cohesive. So that's why we kind of took on this project, and we thought 25% was a reasonable amount to ask for the city since, we knew the budgets were tight. So to fundraise for us is going to be a huge undertaking. So my request was, the city needs to have some skin in the game, and until we know that they are willing to put 25% in, it's going to be too hard for us to raise those funds.
Yeah.
We really need to know the commitment.
So then because I didn't know, actually, because I'm still new on council, and I guess Lynn didn't know about the entryway and the bridges, and then, the commitment to on the west end, right? So in light of that, and this is just a possibility, if we just did the arch downtown, then I'm assuming if it's 400,000, then it would be 25% of that we would kick in, correct?
That would be
okay.
acceptable. And the other comment, though, is that what they have at the East End right now is a water tower. And there's like 3 or 4 water towers throughout town. It's also on the south side of the highway versus the north side when you're coming into town. So that also made it feel a little bit different. It felt more like that gateway sign was more of a housing development sign versus a welcome to Fillmore sign. The one that we're proposing could be at Pole Creek where the Rotary Park is, and it would say welcome to Fillmore. It would have the train, it would have the fruit, of our, being a farm community. So it is a little different. And then, of course, since the west side hasn't been discussed yet with the new development, we were hoping to have discussions with them, and we haven't really had a chance to talk with them yet.
Okay, so I do have a couple of public comments too. So Mark, go ahead and ask your question.
I have a question for you, Renee. You presented this in October, and have you locked in the price of 400,000 or locked in the price? Do you know if it's increased because of inflation? Have you increased it because of the 15 to 30% in wages that are going to be required?
The wages are included because he was aware it was a government project. So that was included. That's why the price is a little higher. But I haven't been pursuing any additional numbers since I didn't know where the city was.
So it may have went up a little bit.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
So if we're now just talking about the downtown sign at 25%, we're looking at 112,500 rather than the 163. So it would be great to have those numbers kind of hammered down, or at least circle back to us to let us know, depending on how we go today, would be really helpful. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I stated, I do have 2 public comments, so let's call up Tim Holmgren on this item. And you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I won't need them. I'm just going to make a very small comment. It's a great idea, and and what they're proposing looks great, and there isn't anything about it that I don't love. But there were some comments and concerns and issues made in the staff report that I took really seriously and thought they really had a lot of validity. And so I wanted to look at and visit what the staff recommended in the first paragraph of the discussion on the first page, where it says, as a result, staff recommends waiting to contribute until the Rotary has raised the necessary funds from other sources, corporate sponsors, developers, grants, service organizations, and private donors. I would love to see the project go forward, but I do think that's probably the best idea.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And Diane Sutton.
Hello. Take my mask off here, and I'm not great at public speaking, so I am going to read this. My name is Diane Sutton. I've lived here since 1993. In 1994, I opened the Type House in what used to be in the Fillmore Flower Shop, one of the largest businesses on Central at the time. I don't want to get too deep into what I did and how long, but it was a viable business, and I got much support from my landlords, Janet and John Foy. The townspeople in the city of Fillmore was also my customer. I know that business owners that do not share a common vision along the city is not a formula for success. It will take much more than repairing neglected storefronts and installing new awnings. I've mentioned the redevelopment of downtown Gilbert, Arizona for some years, but have not taken the initiative to get involved with my city. Do a little bit of homework by contacting an already viable town that has gone from a small farming community to a historically preserved, mixed with contemporary designed commercial downtown district with restaurants, retail, farmers market, live theater, and much more. I called the city of Gilbert today and spoke to Dan Henderson, Gilbert's economic development director, and he spent a half hour on the phone with me giving a synopsis of what the city of Gilbert did to grow the town, and I asked as many questions as I could with my head exploding at the ideas he generously gave to me. He told me it was a 30-year overnight success with 9 mayors in charge along the way. I'll bullet point as much as I can in my limited time here at the podium. They started with redevelopment money, not sure if it was grants, loans, economic development administration, etc. They used the money to slowly buy the commercial property along the main street of Gilbert Road. They had a downtown-specific plan, as we do, which by owning most of the downtown area, they could control what businesses went in. They invited developers to participate in planning their objective and partnered with them, not necessarily for lowest bid, but the most advantageous to the success of the overall plan. Once a successful business was complete, it would sell to an acceptable owner, and in some cases was the developer. At the end of the 10-year time, the city owned 90% of the downtown at some point. They would assemble, then disassemble the temporary task forces consisting of municipal workers, developers, brokers, and a blue ribbon panel of peers as consultants brainstorming ideas. They used the services of International Downtown Association, IDA, offering free ideas as well as cost for more in-depth need. Mr. Henderson told me he and his associates were invited to go to the city of Indio this next week to consult as an in-common desert community to share their successes. I asked him if he would be willing to come to Fillmore to also share their ideas. He was more than gracious accepting that invitation. Gilbert would be happy to share their successes to promote the redevelopment of Fillmore and help to make it a destination. The city of Gilbert's focus is on the downtown sustainability, not on stacking and packing more residents without a workable commercial district.
Diane, your
Since
time's
I
up.
made this initial contact with Mr. Henderson, I can make myself available for an initial introduction if the city would be interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Mayor, can I clarify one thing?
Yep.
In terms of what Mr. Holgram brought up, and what we weren't clear enough on that is that we would say, yes, we'll contribute $100,000 or whatever the number is to the Rotary, and once you guys get your money all in, knowing we're going to contribute, that's when we would contribute the money to them at that point in time. Versus give it to them now, they take it in their pocket. It's done that way. We're going to give it to you, you raise your funding, go and give it to them that way.
So what we're giving them is our commitment.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
That's really important for grants because they have a better chance of getting the grants if the city has some skin in the game.
I don't think they're looking for grants.
Well, anything.
Other people's money.
Well, I mean, Mark raised a good point in that potentially it could be more expensive now. So I'm wondering, I mean, so if we say that we're going to commit tonight and then it ends up being more expensive, then, does that create a problem for, you have to raise more money on the back end and then it's not 25% of what, you know what I mean? So is it, and I don't know if we can answer this, but would it be wise to sort of go back and just say, okay, can we look at these numbers again? And I don't want to kick the can down the road because the decision needs to be made. But if the numbers haven't been looked at for, I know, since October, I mean, things have gone up quite a bit and more expensive. And I wouldn't want to make the decision tonight and then you go back and be like, it's more, I don't know, just something we need to think about.
We could always just commit to 25% and just at that point, we're kind of giving them 25%, whether that ends up being $1 million. I mean, I'm just being sarcastic, but.
Right.
I hope you're sarcastic.
Yeah, I do too.
You never know.
Wait a minute.
You never know nowadays.
Wait a minute. Well, I think what we could do at this point is, based on the numbers we have here, if we are truly only looking at downtown, then as I say, 25% is $112,500. I just did the calculation because it's $450,000. We could commit up to that point, and then go back, resharpen your pencil, see if things have changed, and then we need to report back. In the event that things have changed, say even 50%, that's a problem for you and for us. So I would say that if we, put a limit on it, then you know what you're looking at, and we're moving forward in a partnership. But we need some final details.
I'm haven't chimed in yet. I'm supportive of the downtown. I think that the potential that, well, actually not potential, but what's going to happen with the developers over at the bridges and with Walden. We have developers who are building things that are in some way welcoming and a landmark in Fillmore. I'm all for, I like the consistency too, but there's always the opportunity that once they are in, let's see them, and if there's, potential, I understand, Renee, about you getting all together, but I think at this point, we have developers who are going to be bringing in some things that are real landmarks in Fillmore. So I think the most important part, if we are also going around looking at downtown and investing in multiple different areas, stick with the downtown sign.
I'm just going to say one more thing about what we've talked about. The one word that keeps coming up is maintenance. So if we do this and we commit to this, it has to be maintained and not dilapidated, and then we have to figure out who's going to maintain that and all of those things. So that's really important.
Well, I think that needs to be part of whatever agreement that we need to come up with regarding funding. And I'm not saying that it needs to be you, but I think we need to, set that out straight ahead. Good point. Right. Okay, so any more discussion or motion?
Somebody want to make a motion?
I want to make a motion to that number, the number, I want to make a motion to
$112,500.
To put in $112,500 as 25% for the downtown arch from the American Rescue Plan funds.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Motion carries.
And Mayor, if I may, to clarify that we're going to do a little agreement like was talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll speak to Dave about that tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, though.
Okay.
If a developer at the west end, because they haven't started yet, if they were to decide to do the one that's suggested, would that be approved by the city?
You go back to the planning commission as part of the overall project. They'd show them the entryway sign and then get approval there. And then the project comes to city council and say yes.
Okay.
But yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask this real quick? Hypothetically, if we raise additional money for the both ends, Rotary Park and West End, does the council have any opposition to that? Because it wouldn't cost you, correct? As long as we got permission on using the property and building it and getting the permits?
I don't think that would be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem
All
for
right.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to item 8F. And this is the contract services agreement for interpretation, and I'll turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm here tonight to request the approval of contract services for the years of 2022 through 2023 for interpretation services. On August 11th of 2020, City Council approved a contract with Just Communities, Language Justice Network, to hire translators who are trained and qualified in interpretation and knowledgeable in creating inclusive multilingual spaces. The city has been using services since May of 2019. However, there have been very few meetings at which the interpreter services have been requested or needed. So what staff is recommending tonight is that we modify a little bit the contract services by providing interpretation only at outreach events such as community conversations, workshops, or any sort of engagement with the community. And if a member of the public also requests interpretation in advance, then we can accommodate that with the company. The amount of the contract would be $8,250 for the time of the 2 fiscal years. And the rates have increased. And so currently we're paying $55 for this current year. There is a $60, and then next year it'll go to $65 increase. The administrative fee is still staying at 15%, and then the IRS mileage reimbursement might fluctuate. That's given by the IRS at the beginning of the year. So how we're seeing it, or staff is seeing it, is in order for, and this was also my conversation with the company, is for there to be involvement, there has to be a little bit different steps. So the outreach portion of it would be when we're doing any sort of engagement with the community, such as a community conversation or a workshop, or for example, if we're going to have to start doing educational for the SB 1383 bill that came out. So in that sense, if we're having a community conversation, we'll do a virtual meeting, and then we would have the interpreters via Zoom, like we were doing before we were in person. So at that point, then there's that engagement that happens. And the last portion of, once after the outreach and the engagement have taken place, then the involvement comes into play. And so that was a discussion we had with, the Just Community management as well. So that's what we're proposing today. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'd like to know, Erika, if staff will be able to translate the agenda, the 2 pages. And then is that something that staff can do to, again, allow those who both speak and read Spanish the opportunity to see what is on the agenda in order to then make the request, if potential, to have an interpreter here for their comments on particular agenda items?
I can just speak on, from seeing staff, we already operate in a very skeleton crew. Most of the interpretations come through my desk, and I a lot of times will designate that to a staff member, but then it comes back for me to proofread before it goes out there. And so just knowing that there's been a lot of changes, the majority of the people who speak Spanish are in the finance office, and they're already operating in a skeleton crew, I think at this given time would be requesting too much of staff to do it. And I'm just being honest.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but I meant by agenda, I meant the table of contents of the agenda. I meant the 2 pages.
Okay.
Is that your answer too, for the 2 pages?
I think so, yeah. I speak Spanish. Spanish is my first language, and I understand that there's an importance to, have that engagement, and that's why we're proposing this, to maybe kind of change the model of how we've engaged people by doing the outreach so that they know on these other events that come into play. And then once you've gone that engagement, then you can start most likely trying to get some involvement from the community. But I'm just being honest, I think it would just be too much of an added burden for staff.
So Erica, how will they find out about the activities if we don't tell them in Spanish anywhere?
Well, that's what we're proposing. It would be any sort of activities would be kind of involved with like the portion of the outreach of it.
But
So
how would they know that an outreach event is going to happen? We're not putting it on the back of the
For example,
water bill
the
anymore.
housing element.
Pardon me?
For example, the housing element.
Right. How will they know?
That's going to be already, it's part of Kimley Horn. They're already, who's our contractor, they're already providing that interpretation when the meeting was happening, right? And so we would do the same thing. If there's a big event for the city, we would translate whatever information is provided in English to Spanish. And I mean, if we get permission, add it to the back of the bill. When we post information on social media, we try to stay on top on putting both English and Spanish. And, sometimes if things are running too quickly, then we go ahead and, if I forget or someone forgets, Facebook now has that C translation item, and so does Instagram as well, where you quickly click on it and it'll translate from any language.
Right. So if I don't have internet and I'm at my house and I'm interested, I want to know what's going on, but I only speak Spanish. How will I find out because our newspaper's in English and they announce things, and so people can find out about that way. But how would I find out that something is going, the housing element is happening?
We could develop a method to add information more into the back of the utility bill.
So that, or put a letter in with it or something.
Correct.
I would like to see if perhaps we could have a group of Spanish speakers get together and tell us the most effective ways. I think it's really good to start with events and get people expecting to have interpreters there. And Just Community's system of interpretation is really good. And so if we could be sure that then the community would feel comfortable that they will always have an interpreter and be respected at the meetings and not set aside and that kind of stuff, then I think there's a good chance we might get more people to come to the meetings if we also have facilities available. I mean, the proper tools, the translation available of the agenda, little things like that, and the interpretation. So I like the concept, but I want to be sure we do it right.
Okay.
So I don't know how to say that.
I'll just comment again that, for example, for tonight, if this was into effect, a Spanish speaker would not know that we are discussing this item about Spanish interpretation, because they wouldn't know it. It's not, the agenda is not translated. So I just want to press that that comment and basically say it's great to have the outreach at the big events, but if we are really making a commitment to being inclusive, I think we should find it in our budget or in our staff time to translate 2 pages and do it via, and I understand maybe there'll be feedback, that this word or something, this phrase didn't translate well, or someone may comment, but I think would be a very rare thing that would happen, and to use, like you said, those things like Google Translate to copy and paste. So I'm just that's my comment on the issue.
I hate to kick this back, but if you're just saying it's part of the budget, then that should be part of the Budget Committee conversation.
Well, I do think that would be something the Budget Committee should talk about. I think we can pass this as it is now, and the Budget Committee can discuss.
And move it down to them.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Mark. So I move that we accept the recommendation of the staff.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Reluctantly.
opposed? Very good. Motion carries.
Okay, Budget Committee, I'm counting on you. All right.
Okay, so, you know what? Tim,
That's all right. All I was going to say was that I was in favor of you going with staff's recommendation.
okay, I apologize.
Well, thanks.
I was getting confused with all these changes. I apologize, and Diane Sutton's not in here anyhow, so. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 8G, and this is for the ROPS. I'll turn that over to staff. ROPS.
Good evening, council members, mayor and council members, city attorneys, Dave. This item, the ROPS budget, it's annual request from the Ventura County Oversight Board to provide funding for it's mostly debt service that is the basically debt service of debt that the redevelopment agency had when the redevelopment agencies were dissolved back in 2012. And so continuing to pay that debt service, we have to annually go back to the oversight board, and they're in control of the tax monies that are dispersed to pay for this debt service. So this is what this is about, and basically is to authorize staff to make the request from the oversight board, and which we've submitted the request. It's before the board. There will be a meeting tomorrow morning, and they'll make a decision on all the successor agencies of Ventura County. Excuse me. The request is for $3,792,757, and that includes an administrative cost allowance of $98,557. The total debt service that will be paid from those monies is $3,649,500, which is the principal and interest payments for the bond issue that's still owed as a result of the that bond issue that the redevelopment agency had. And there's still 9 more years to go, so we still have to keep going there and requesting the money. So they allow for some administrative money. They also allow for some other costs which are not in this request, which they involved in the basically the properties that we still have that are going to be eventually sold by our successor agency. There's cost involved. Some of those costs will be paid by the sale money that's generated from and that occurs at the end of the year when you kind of do a true up, and then they'll give you more money to cover that or not. So we'll have to see when that occurs. But that's what the request is for, and if you have any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I move to approve staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move right on. We're going to go to item number 8H, and this is regarding full-time active adult center senior nutrition aid, and I'll turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm here tonight to request approval of a full-time position for the Active Adult Center. Back in July of last year, we came to you and requested approval of a cook position, which was part-time. And so how the center is being run right now is we have one full-time active adult coordinator who's there all the time. And then we have one part-time senior nutrition aide who works 4 hours roughly. Sometimes whenever there's a little bit more, they end up working a little bit extra, 5 hours max a day. And so we posted the cook position. We haven't received one single applicant for that job. And so we're kind of trying to change the model a little bit. And I think if we combine the senior nutrition aide with the active adult center senior nutrition, the cook and the active adult senior nutrition assistant, and provide a full-time with benefits, we might have a little bit more of enticing out there, and hopefully someone qualified applies for the job. This position would be a union position. We have already met and confirmed with the union, and they're in support of the position. And so the fiscal impact that I provided to you tonight would be at the top, pretty much at the top or max rate that position would be earning. And that also includes any sort of statutory benefits that we have and are required to pay. And so we're proposing for the funding to be equally divided between the senior nutrition aide and the active adult center full-time salary. The grant does pay a little bit because we do get money from the grant, but it's about $27,000 that goes into that position. So we would have to absorb the additional monies for the position funding. We do service, especially now with the pandemic, we have seen an increase of numbers that we've been servicing the community. And when the pandemic was at peak, most of staff here, including myself, were doing deliveries. And personally, I saw that there was a lot of constituents who depend on these meals. And so we haven't reopened the center right now just because of the uncertainty of, whether the pandemic is coming to an end or not. And so that's why we're operating right now in a hybrid model where constituents come in and drive through, those who are able, but we also depend on volunteers, which sometimes we don't. We're very grateful for the volunteers. The fire department also assists in delivering those meals, but now that City Hall is open back to the public, we oftentimes have to have the 2 staff members that we have. After the drive-through model happens on Monday, they go out and deliver because we also have Meals on Wheels. And so that ends up taking a little bit of extra time from staff as well and doing the deliveries. And so I'm here to answer any questions.
How many do you deliver? Just curiosity.
So pre-pandemic, we were at about 35. We are fluctuating between 100 and 125.
A day?
A week. Wow. And so each member receives 5 frozen meals, and then there's produce and milk and bread that goes along with that.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, thank you.
So I read the account that when we put it out for the cook, and I read what the job description was, and it was huge. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I can't see how anyone can do that in 4 hours. So now this position would be for a cook who would extend to a full-time, or is this a senior nutritionist?
So what we're proposing, the payroll title would be a senior nutrition aide, who would have, the responsibility of getting some clerical stuff in the sense of submitting menus to the county for approval, because we have to do that ahead of time, and then helping the active adult coordinator in some of the data entry, because at the beginning of the fiscal year, although we have constituents who are returning, we have to collect intakes. So every single person who has been receiving services. We have to go in and put it into the system. And so it being a combination of like helping clerically whenever there is some downtime, but also assisting in providing the cooking for like the larger events. One thing I've discussed with staff is with change in personnel, before there was more like elaborated meals, like for example, which is great, you know, but sometimes you have to kind of downscale it, and you can still provide quality service, but just kind of modifying it. Give you an example, we were cooking sopa de albóndigas, which takes, you know, a long time to do so. And so we can maybe use steam trays or have other alternatives that will reduce that time of cooking, but also still deliver equality of service for the constituents.
But we still don't have a cook?
We still don't have one.
And so you're pretty sure that by taking those additional responsibilities away, a cook will arrive?
I think by merging both and providing a full-time plus benefits, that will, you know, allow us to hire someone.
So the cook will be full-time?
So the cook will be now part of the senior nutrition aide.
Got
so we
it.
are requesting for the 2 part-timers combined into 1 full-time position with benefits.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought we still didn't have a cook. Okay, thanks.
I'm just glad the change is being made. I think I'll get somebody.
I hope so.
Okay, discussion or?
I know. I just want to ask a quick question.
Okay.
How do you, if you're not getting any people applying, how are we getting this information out that there are jobs available in the city?
We usually do publication on the Gazette, social media, website. I try to stay away from Indeed because in past experiences it costs a lot of money, and then you end up getting applicants from everywhere, and it's just, you know, we're spending money. But a lot of times also we try to advertise in other resources for some other positions, such as like the Western Cities magazine or other agencies that will provide that support. But it's expensive to advertise too.
For sure.
So.
Okay.
All right, I'll make that motion to adopt Resolution 223863.
I second.
Very good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Right, so we are moving right on here, and this is going to be item 8I, and this is approving the submittal of applications for Cal Recycle grant, and I'll turn that over to staff.
Thank you. That one's mine as well. So in the past, the city has received Cal Recycle funding through the Cal Recycle Grants Program. And as you know, we have been in the process of working and implementing the State Bill 1383, which is short-lived climate pollutants, organic waste reduction requirements that the state is asking from us. And so we are hoping that you authorize today to apply for this grant, which will help us offset some of the costs that the city will have. The max amount that we can apply for was set by Cal Recycle, and that's $21,754. I'm hoping you approve it today. I already have the application all ready to go. And just hit submit. And so it will help with a lot of the offsetting some of the costs of the contractor who's working closely with my office on getting that done. We're also hoping on putting out workshops in the next coming months and send out information to constituents so that they know what the program will require for both residential and commercial. So that concludes my presentation.
Any questions?
I have a question. The person you're working with, is that Harrison, the Santa Clara Valley, because they're doing the recycling?
So we work
solid
with,
waste.
so Harrison is part of it, but we have a contract with Solid Waste Solution. So Kim Nielsen and her team, she was the one who came to present the ordinance.
Yeah.
We're working closely with her, and she's helping with all of the requirements because it's a lot. We have a spreadsheet that has like over 25 tabs to try to keep track of everything that the state is requesting, from procurement to, engagement with the constituents and so on. So.
But Harrison is supporting you?
Harrison is also working
Yeah,
closely
okay.
with us,
I
yes.
would be surprised if they weren't, because they're really excited. Nan Drake called me, and we talked about it at length, and I guess it's going to be approved, or she's hoping the whole process will be approved by the county on February 7th. So, okay, thank you. That was all.
Any other questions or recommendations?
I move to adopt resolution number 223860.
And I will second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Moving on to committee, commission, and board reports. I'm sorry I keep doing that. I'm so sorry. Anybody?
No. The Ventura County, Joy mentioned it briefly, that there is a time now that they're taking a survey, but they're also asking people to do walking surveys. And I had the forms and I left them at home. And that means that anyone in the neighborhood can go for a walk. And then they have 10 questions that they ask you to fill out. Is the street curb right? Is the sidewalk appropriate? Does it need shade? Whatever it is that you want to say. And so this is a chance for the whole community to get together and say what it is that they feel they need. And they could add a bus to Santa Clarita if they want to do that. And so I would like to recommend that people do that. And Mark, you'll be glad to hear that the Ventura Regional Sanitation District, that Santa Paula, it was on the newspaper yesterday, that Santa Paula did approve the water so that the district can continue. It's not in financial problem now. So that service will continue. But it was interesting to me that Tolan Road, with people recycling, and our recyclers are one of the few in the nation that actually find sellers for what we recycle. So I'm very proud of that. That the recycling at Tolan Road, the trash is being reduced, and they're losing money because not that many people are dumping trash because they're recycling, which is wonderful, but then Tolan has difficulty. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know why, but I did.
Anyone else? Okay, city council reports, recommendations, and comments.
I just want to make one comment that, came out of this evening, kind of a theme. Volunteers for the Spirit of Santa Paula and volunteers for the Adult Center. I think people who are new in town and that just moved to the Bridges, a lot of them are stay-at-home moms and things like that. And I just think it would be really great if we could somehow make a push for volunteers for some of these places. And so I don't, know how we can do that, but, I'm not saying it should be an agenda item or anything, but I just want to make a comment on that because I think it's really important. It's like, I would love to volunteer at the Spirit Center, but I didn't, people don't know about it. So it just needs to be, put out there. So.
I'd like to say something about that, if that's okay. Last year previously, I don't know who it was at the city hall, but people would call the city and ask for what volunteer services they could do, and they would always give my number. And then I would tell people where they could volunteer. And I was glad to do that. I don't know who gave that out, but it was fine. But maybe there needs to be a number. And that I don't want to add to already our overworked staff, but maybe we need to discuss that at another time.
And I'd like to make a request regarding the the Mission Rock facility and the ongoing issues that are happening there with the potential reopening. I know that our city is going to be drafting a letter regarding it, and so I just wanted to see if we could see a draft of that or have a discussion on update if the city of Fillmore is going to take any stand with the county in regards to the reopening of that. This is a facility that had a chemical explosion several years ago. Several first responders were injured and basically unable to work. And so it's potentially reopening. It's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of trucks on the roadway, and you know, when we talked about this earlier, they actually mentioned the city of Fillmore of our water treatment facility accepting their waste and without any knowledge of our city. So anyway, I just want to know where that stands. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a draft in progress right now. One of the things we're waiting for is what hits the agenda for the County Board of Supervisors. If this is something City Council as a whole would like to go for, we can get that, Tiffany, I can finalize that letter, have it ready to go and shoot off. Talking with people would be much better for our letter to go into the board level versus the planning department level, and that's where it's at.
Good. Sounds like we're all in agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, city manager's report.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Very good. So at this point, we're going to adjourn into closed session. Tonight, we have 2 issues to discuss. We have conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and we have a second item, conference with legal counsel regarding another anticipated litigation. So we will recess at this point and then come back to you when we're finished. Okay, council is back. Just reporting out that council has unanimously decided to initiate litigation in one case against David Storrs, and we have no reportable action on the second case. And we'll recess now until the next regular meeting on February 8th, right here, 6:30 in City Hall. Thank you. Good night.